The greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated to. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the air. That's the reason I collect so many guns in my lair. I ain't never caught slipping, never underprepared. Yeah, they shade sign on me, they just spray it proudly. George Bush, the grandson of Alistair Crowley. They want you to believe the lie that the enemy's Saudi. The enemy ain't Saudi, the enemy around me. It's fluoride in the water, but nobody know that. It's also a prominent ingredient in Prozac. For real? How could any government bestow that upon people who believe in political throwback? That's not all that I'm here to present you. I know about the Black Pope and Solomon's Temple. Yeah. About the Vatican assassins and how they will get you. And how they clone Barack Hussein Obama in a test tube.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end.
Whoever built the pyramids had knowledge of electrical power. And you know that that's the information that they suppress and devour. Who you think the motherfuckers that crashed in the tower? Who you think that made it turn into ash in an hour? The same ones that invaded your own. The ones that never told you about the skeletons on the moon. Yeah, the ones that poison all the food you consume. The ones that never told you about the Mount Vesuvius tombs. The bird flu is a lie. The swine flu is a lie. Why would that even come as a surprise? Yeah, the beast has war, your law made you die. It caused cancer and it cost a lot of people their lives. Do y'all know about Bohemian Grove? How the world leaders sacrificing children in robes? Lucifer is God in the public school system. I suggest you open up your ears and you listen.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you can't. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening. And they have.
Hello and welcome to Gareth Icke Tonight. Many years ago, when travelling was, well, less hassle and more affordable, I was in Malta. I saw some graffiti on a wall, which you notice in Malta because there basically isn't any graffiti. It's like England in the 1950s. It read, in big red letters, "The people get the government they deserve." I pondered on it, came to the conclusion that the vandal probably had a point. Not in the sense that the people deserve to get screwed over by lying career politicians and compromised assets of the permanent government, and not in the sense that the people deserve it because, they elected the wrong people. I'm old enough and ugly enough to have learnt that we live in one-party states. I learnt that a very long time ago. The different coloured rosettes are only there to create the illusion of democracy. But that's what it is, it's an illusion. The graffiti resonated in the sense that, just like in any relationship, you'll get what you're willing to accept, good or bad. Now, of course, every relationship has its ups and downs, it has its disagreements, its compromises, but if you're in a relationship that is so one-sided, so disproportionate, where one of you purely takes and the other merely gives, then at some point, a decision has to be made. If you accept that you're merely going to be the downtrodden, the isolated, the miserable, the unfulfilled, the beater, then that's all you'll ever be. And at the point of acceptance, that's your lot, isn't it? You may as well write the obituary. And so to me, that's what I took from the graffiti. It's time for some self-reflection, some self-responsibility. And if I'm not willing to do that, and I will accept an existence of on-my-knees servitude, then in a way, I kind of deserve what I get. And I understand it's not all black and white. There's, mitigating circumstances. Not everyone has walked the same path to where they are, but as a whole, as a collective, we're in this mess because we were willing to put up with it. It's only when we were pushed to a point of no return that we finally stood up. So many stood during COVID because the draconian measures were so invasive, so obvious, and in the cases of vaccine mandates, literally a choice between life and potential death. But imagine if at the point of March 2020, the dynamic of the people and the government was such that the government knew they wouldn't get away with what they wanted to do, and ultimately did. Governments the world over, the WHO, the media, all their assets in all their different forms, pushed the COVID hell on the global population because they knew, in the most part, the people would take it. And they did, at first. And so where we are now in the UK, with the Labour Party taking the public-facing role within the Union Party and running for the finish line in terms of destroying the nation and its population through increased taxation, net zero nonsense, increased immigration, censorship and authoritarianism, the people are terrified as they read through the pages of the government's new budget. How will it affect me? How will I survive as my taxes rise, my energy bills rise, my fuel costs rise, my food costs rise? Because obviously, if you increase fuel prices, then you increase food prices because the distributors pass on the increase in their shipping costs to you and me. So what do? Do we sell the family silver just so energy companies can make another few billion in profits, so supermarkets can register their record takings to the stock exchange, all while the corrupt politicians that signed off on these budgets get to live the life of Riley on our taxes with no such concerns for paying the bills? They're more concerned about getting free Taylor Swift tickets than they are about making ends meet. So why do we put up with it? Why do we go along with it? Why do we give our power to these people? And it's not just the United Kingdom. There are 337 million people in the USA, and they get to decide between Kamala Harris and Donald frickin' Trump. It's not a democracy. Which America's second jab pushing genocide apologist would you prefer to not represent you for a few years? Oh, mate, decisions. The permanent government in all our countries around the world ultimately answer to the same faceless bureaucrats and corporate leaders. They don't care about a single one of us. So why on earth would we care about them? Because it comes back to that one-way relationship once again. We are, all of us, in an abusive relationship with the state. They want you to look to them for answers, for permissions, for authority, because it elevates them above you in the relationship dynamic. And once you realise that and you decide that, well, no, mate, that role isn't for me, really, it's a darn sight easier to stand your ground. It's a darn sight easier to say, no, mate. The permanent government want us unable to travel, unable to socialise. They want us to be joyless, soulless worker bees that pay our taxes, eat our bug gruel and shut the hell up. Whether or not we fulfil that wish is down to us, the people, and us alone. So let's not wait until we're ordered to stay in our houses before we start uniting and saying no to these demons. Our final guest this evening is a former Antifa member from Eugene, Oregon, who turned his back on the group in 2020. Since then, Tyler King has been looking for answers about the group, about the political divide, and ultimately about himself. Tyler, welcome to the show. When did you join Antifa, and what first, attracted you to the group?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Gareth. It's an honor to be here. And what attracted me to group, I think initially, if you would have asked me at the time, I would have said, government corruption, the black communities, there's police brutality. This is all reminiscent of the Holocaust, Donald Trump's Hitler. What you ultimately come to realize getting out of it is a lot of this stems from broken families, a broken education system, a lack of proper mental health care, a proper lack of taking care of its citizenry. And what you have is a legion of young men in this nation, with women sprinkled out throughout for sure, but this is largely a male problem and a trans problem. You just have the angriest of all of these groups that have been disenfranchised and felt disaffected for so many years that now it's all rising up to the surface. And really, people were using the political climate at the time as an excuse to act on the things in their life that they weren't settled. They weren't healing. They weren't taking the time to center themselves, to properly educate them on things that were really happening. So when the cult came along and said, this is what's happening, this is why you're in pain, this is why you're hurting, and we need you to put on the black and get out on the streets to fight this, there were so many of us that were willing, because it felt like the only real change that we could reach out and grab.
Do you think maybe this is kind of happening a little bit on each side? Both sides of the political divide are kind of seeing that young men, particularly, you're absolutely right, young men are massively disenfranchised, and actually going, do you know what? Instead of solving the problem and maybe getting you to look at where the real problems are, we'll get you to focus on the other side. So then you go, okay, yeah, it's all them. But they're telling the other lot the exact same thing. And actually what you're doing is just pitching against each other.
Yeah, because, when you have one group that's going out and putting fear into 50% of the population, and then you have another group that's going out and they happen to be putting 50% of the population into fear as well, then you have 100% of the population in fear. And it's 100%. Like they manipulated us all the way, because eventually they wanted someone to go into DC and create chaos. Antifa went a little bit too early, so we don't talk about May 29th. We talk about January 6th. The feds infiltrated both sides, and they practiced on the left. And when that became more publicly permissible, and the American people were about it, then it's like, let's go after the conservatives. Because if we can get both sides labeled as terrorists, then we can just go after every American citizen under the sun. That was the goal. They wanted a battle in DC. They facilitated it. And now it's falling apart because they can't keep their story straight.
Nailed it. Exactly that. That's the thing, isn't it? You get both sides fighting each other and you go, oh, okay, this is chaos, isn't it? Don't mention the fact that we kind of orchestrated the chaos. But then once people are saying, this is horrendous, cities are burning, there's an insurrection, whatever, you come in and go, well, do you know what? Here's some laws I made earlier, and I can bring that in and use that to... Some laws I made earlier, and I can bring that in and use that to attack both sides. It's interesting with Antifa, because I know a couple of people that are involved with Antifa or have been over the years, and they've always said to me, Antifa isn't an organization. It just means anti-fascist. It's completely independent. There's no governing body, essentially. There's no hierarchy. It's just an organic movement of individuals that aren't answerable to anyone. Is that what you saw within the organization?
It's what I bullshit myself into believing in the beginning, and it's a great way to get it by with not having to take accountability for your actions and what you're getting involved with. And it is very disembodied, and it is very all over the place, so it's very easy to fool yourself. But really what Antifa is it's a gang. It's colors, it's the numbers, it's the 1312, it's the ACABs, it's the painting up your territory, it's the police come into your neighborhood, and all the neighborhood, me and all the other college kids that lived in the area, because I lived near the University of Oregon. There was days I sat out there with a fucking bat playing nasty fuck the police music while someone's just trying to write a ticket down in the parking lot, because we wanted to strike fear. And because my generation, we all grew up on gangster rap, right? We all wanted to be big and bad and tough. We all wanted to look fucking cool. We wanted to put on the mask. And we embodied that because society really did help facilitate that. They put it onto the black community, and now all these trends in the drugs and the alcohol and the partying and the broken families, now that's switched over to the LGBT community. And we're seeing more of that with, there's no difference between what's happening with trans kids and what's happening with radicals, minus the violence. But even now we're starting to see that a lot of these trans kids are murdering their parents, gunning down Christian schools, because it's become so permissible that everybody knows it's an apocalypse. Everybody knows that World War III is coming. Everybody knows that something big is about to happen. So if you're going to die tomorrow anyways, you may as well do something big today.
Well, you for me, when it came to the BLM riots and all that stuff, we had Antifa on the street. As soon as you saw, pallets of bricks being left on street corners, that was obvious to anyone that, hang on, this is orchestrated high up because you've got a load of people that are, been made to get angry, some of it justified anger, and then, oh, there's a brick there. It just happens to be there. That's crazy, isn't it? It was so orchestrated. It was crazy. Was there something, Tyler, that you actually, because obviously you left in 2020, so I'm guessing, it's around this same time of those riots. Was there anything that happened in particular, like, one thing you can maybe pinpoint where you actually went, do you know what, mate, like, I'm out?
So much of it. And I'll give you some examples, but I want to come back to the brick thing because I have a theory on that from some things I learned recently. But I mean, if you want to talk about the angles, you had the militia coming out. You occasionally had a couple neo-Nazis. You could tell by the patches, but realistically, the Nazis weren't out on the attack. You had the police that were orchestrating in very shady ways. And while in hindsight, I do agree with the fact that a lot of the protest and riotous behavior needed to be quashed, there was a lot of weird technology that was being brought out, scrambling text alerts that were going out to people outside of the protest areas, but not the people within. So the people within the protest groups would get attacked, and then they had plausible deniability that, oh, the text went out, it just didn't happen to go here. We wrote phone numbers on our arms to simulate Jewish people in the Holocaust, because when we got arrested, that was basically our call number. So I would go out there with my husband's number on my arm, and you would look at that, and you would look at the people out there, and they'd even pass out Sharpies to you to make sure that you had your numbers down. And then you're making this false, insanely inappropriate historical comparison that you are all of a sudden a Jew in the Holocaust. That you're about to be a black man getting beat in the streets, and you're taking on every single identity but your own. And as far as the bricks getting laid in the streets, a lot of what we're seeing with Antifa, when a riot is happening over here, all the news is over here, all the citizens are over here, all the cops are over here, everyone who's not involved, they're staying the fuck home. Because in a small town like Eugene, that means traffic's going to be backed up, you're not going to be able to get anywhere, you may as well just lock down if you know about it. So what's happening on the other side of the city? We never asked that question the entire time. We sure spent a hell of a lot of time shutting down people in QAnon or people that were discussing human trafficking, which isn't to say I agree with a lot of things in QAnon, but the human trafficking discussion was getting quashed. Drugs were being put out into the streets. I really, truly believe that there are criminal elements that are using Antifa. I don't think that they're in control of Antifa per se, but I think that when you have a force out there that's willing to cause chaos, and you can use social media to mitigate where that chaos goes, particularly in coordination with a government that just got in bed with said social media companies and is willing to hide information and pit two people at the same time, I don't know how many truckloads of kids fucking were spent.
Yeah, I think I'd be very tempted to do that if I was nefarious.
Yeah. And like, how many kids were killed or lost or raped or trafficked or sent overseas because of us? That is a serious question we need to ask on the right and the left. I don't speak for the right. I'll speak for the left because that's my experience. But that's why we need to have people in Antifa come out and put together these pieces, because I can only do so much. But these are some of the most rebellious people you've ever met. For as complacent and cult-like as they are, they want to fight. They want to take the power. They want to take the fight to the government, and they just need to know that they can do it non-violently. They can do it through art, through conversation, through song. Antifa takes the creatives. So many of these people are painters and musicians and drawers and programmers and game developers. They're trying to keep the creatives complacent and in a place where they can't express themselves and show the world what's really fucking happening. That's why all the TV's fake right now. You turn it on, you're like, this isn't real life. This is propaganda. I don't walk into a room and I'm the only white guy every single place I go. Like, this isn't real anymore.
Nah, but I think they've also, they've got there's an element of society which is, up for rebellion. From my experience in life, it's generally has been actually the left. Some people on the right might not want to hear that, but it's true. When I was at all the anti-war protests were against the Iraq war and all stuff, it was generally left-leaning people that were part of that anti-war movement, that actually were pushing the anti-war movement. So maybe what the powers that be have done have gone, right, we've got a group of people here that are going to rebel. Now, we can't stop them rebelling because it's within them. It's in their DNA. So let's just give them a target. Provide the target for them to attack. And that's maybe what they've done with these people, and they're pitching them against people, like you say, that are exposing human trafficking, stuff that actually we should be aligned on that.
Yeah, and I grew up back in 2014 or 2015. I was in South Texas, and I lived near Victoria, Texas. Victoria, Texas was the staging ground for Operation Jade Helm 15. That's where they were doing martial law practices and military exes in the state of Texas down south. There was paratroopers coming from the skies. There was trains with hundreds of tanks and Humvees and vehicles and assault rifles, caskets in some cases. And essentially what Operation Jade Helm 15 was they had an AI battle tech system where they were going to use predictive programming on the battlefield. So essentially what they were doing was they were trying to use AI in spaces around South Texas. I heard a lot of stories back then of there were illegal immigrants who were being black-bagged and kidnapped from their houses because the AI gave them the wrong place and they were supposed to be the decoy targets. And Obama was going around because the militias were freaking out and he was calling everyone white supremacist, white supremacist, white supremacist. And now I feel like I'm seeing all these same AI patterns in the riots that I'm seeing. And Jade Helm never left my mind. And now I see where that's led. And everyone was called crazy, and everyone was called stupid, and everyone was called a conspiracy theorist and told not to worry about it. And they got to practice it on the people in the meantime. And
that's a red flag to me. When everyone gets attacked and called a conspiracy theorist, at that point, that's a red flag for me, I think.
Yeah, because a lot of people in Antifa in the beginning were conspiracy theorists. They were the anti-war crowd. They were the Occupy Wall Street movement. They were gone within a year or two because they knew what was happening. But I just really want those people to come back out and say their piece and be like, hey, saw this, did this, worried about this. And whether it's a little bit or a lot, anything can help right now. Anything.
Yeah. Have you found that you've got, any grief, any threats, any negativity towards you? Not at all. That's great.
No, you go to my channel, I've got 2 dislikes. All the comments, there's occasionally, there's maybe 10 bad comments that I can think of, and I can remember them specifically because they ring out in my head because there's so few, but they're always very unintelligible, and mostly it's people being I'm praying for you, I'm fighting for you, keep speaking out. It's been nothing but love because all people have been wanting to hear this entire time. We're what's going to solve this? What's going to fix this? And I'm sorry, and I was wrong. This is what I did, and this is what I intend to do moving forward. If we all did that collectively, all anyone wants to hear is sorry. We've been such fucking assholes to the point where I've confessed it on my channel. I wanted to grab a shotgun off the back of a conservative in the streets and mow him down. That impulse was there. I will never leave that feeling, especially not in a small town where I've seen that guy at the grocery store multiple times. And he doesn't know he's passing somebody that wanted to kill him. What kind of fucking society are we creating?
No,
I wanted to kill.
How do you think that we can unite people? Because, fundamentally, when you get people in tribes, in groups, then, everyone's, Johnny Big Balls and giving all that. But actually, when you tend to get people on their own, most people, you can disagree about stuff, but you've got more in common than you've got that separate you, right? And no one really, whatever your political opinion, no one wants to live in a rough area where they fear for their lives or they fear for paying the bills. How am I going to feed my kids? My kids can't play out on their own because I fear what's going on. No one wants to live like that, right? So how do you think we bring people together to the point where we can just put the disagreements aside for a bit, at least?
We need to oversaturate the market, so to speak. A big thing that made me want to get out was realizing the eugenics scandal. I'm out there screaming about trans rights, and meanwhile, thousands of kids were getting butchered, taken away from their families. I had no idea. Buck Angel, who is a YouTuber he's been speaking out and working with the detransitioners a lot, he made that a large area of focus where he not only spoke with the detransitioners, he spoke with the friends of these people, he spoke with actual trans people, he spoke with the families, he spoke with psychiatrists, he spoke with everybody in the field that he could. And he oversaturated the conversation in the most positive way possible, in that you can go through his channel and you just have all of these detransitioners, all of these people who their stories all stem from the same place and they share so much similarities, but they're all so unique. But because the detransitioner stories are getting so oversaturated with people coming out and simply speaking their truth, saying, hey, I got fucked over. Hey, I was in a bad place. Here, this is an honest, open evaluation into what my mindset was like, what my family life was like, what I was doing to my friends, how I was living, how the drugs played a role, how the alcohol played a role. If we can just oversaturate the market instead of thinking our stories aren't important, we can fix this, because so many people try to convince me that my story wasn't important. And it is, and it needs to be told. So if they're going to come in, and if there's a potential in the United States where we're going to have a president come in next year that brings in all of these censorship programs, well, you're going to need to get these stories out now. Like now. It's free to start a YouTube account, and my camera costs $5. It is not hard. Send some emails, reach out to the right people, and oversaturate the market with truth.
I agree. I agree completely. This is the thing. You know, people fear what people will say or how people will act in terms of what they come out and say. They don't fear what the government will do, not most of the time. I found this during COVID, you know, when people were maybe wanted to go out twice a day or didn't want to wear a mask in a shop. They weren't scared of the police. They weren't scared of the government or they were scared of the guy across the road or, you know, the guy at work and what he was going to say. And actually, like, that's not important. It's just nonsense. It's just nonsense that you kind of create for yourself, really. I agree with you completely, Tyler. People need to speak up. And we need to let people speak up as well. That's the thing. You know, when people have a different view to you and it's people are always trying to shut people down and talk over them. And it's like, everyone's got a voice and everyone deserves to be heard.
Even the Nazis. And that's a hard lesson to learn, but even the Nazis, I would much rather live in an America where I live up the road from a Nazi and they're not trying to kill me. And you know what? I do. I live in a red side of town and there are left-wing militia and there are right-wing militia. And guess what? We all live in the same suburbs. I would like to not wake up the next morning and us all to be at civil war and me being taken at gunpoint and put in the back of the van by the guy who's, you know, sitting out there watering his flowers 2 days ago. I would rather him sit there with his beliefs, simmer down over time. Perhaps society will get better and he'll give up those beliefs, smile, nod, be friendly, and realize we're all fucking human. Some of the best people I've ever met, who I met in my life even prior to Antifa, who I feel like I understand now more than ever, are former neo-Nazis. I've met a lot of former neo-Nazis in my life, decked out head to toe in swastikas, Iron Eagles, who've walked away from it, can't afford to get rid of the tattoos. They're some of the happiest people on the planet because they've seen hell. They've seen the devil within themselves, and they're getting away. And everybody deserves that space. You know, I think of people around here just getting, oh, you fucking Nazi, he's got a tattoo, he's got that. Well, tattoos are permanent. Maybe he's trying to get better on that. And maybe you're going after him like a lynch mob is only going to encourage him to go back to that. Because right now, if for anyone reading white supremacist literature, things like William Turner, the left has kind of created a white supremacist dystopia that's meant to get them riled up and create an accelerationist plot that ultimately is going to rally them to war. You know, the Turner Diaries, too much of it is comparable to what we have now. And it's because racist government officials have taken these beliefs and they've implemented them and they've set the stage and we're all players. But we can all hop off the fucking stage and start throwing tomatoes anytime we fucking want. Just don't start lobbing bullets because apparently Americans can't shoot. It's just fucking laughable at this point.
It's true. People need to just get off the stage. I mean, everyone knows it, really. You have conversations. You say to someone, if you was to say to someone, all the world's a stage and we're merely players, you would find very few people that go, what are you on about? Most people go, yeah, pretty much. It's like, okay, well, let's step off then. Let's at least call an interval. And let's have a break, you know, from this nonsense. And because you're absolutely right, there has to also be, you know, people have to be given the freedom to grow. As you've said, there's people there that had beliefs and acted in a way and said things previously that, well, if you're never going to forgive them and you're never going to let them move on and be better, then, well, nothing's ever going to change then, ever.
Yeah. And the conservatives left that space open for me. The left didn't. And I'm grateful that they did because the right was there to pray for me. They were there to say, I love you. And they're there to say, you have a home. And that's not to say I'm a Republican now, but I feel more at home in my country than I ever have because of that. I'm very grateful for that.
That's great. That's great, Tyler. Where can people watch your videos and stuff? Because you say you've got a YouTube channel and stuff like that where you're putting content out. Where can people find you?
Yeah, no worries. It's Build Baby Build with Ty King. And you know, do a lot of discussions into that and a lot of other things as well. I think there's a lot connected to this, and I intend to keep going.
Magic. Thank you so much for joining us, Tyler. Mate, we will unite in the end. I'll never give up. I refuse to give up. One day, everyone can sit down and have a beer.
We all have to remember the last passages of Revelation. It's not all fire and brimstone. There's a greater promise on the other end, and if all the rest of the shit's coming true, then stand firm, hold your faith, and we're going to be okay.
Top man. Cheers, Tyler. Thanks, mate.
Peace and love. Thank y'all.